In the first edition of Qaf Podcast Awards, حوار متطرف podcast won the Best Idea category, and the second place went to إلا وسعها podcast. In the Dialogue Podcast category, the podcast As-Sikka won the first place, while the podcast Frame won the second place. In the Best Narrative Podcast category, the podcast كتب تتحدث of the main library at Sultan Qaboos University won the first place, while the podcast حيلة came second. In the listeners category, the podcast حوار متطرف won the first place, and the podcast عوالم came second.
Of course, the importance of the podcast or the awards today is for the creators and for the producers. And we hope that encourage them to continue their work and their creativity, and we are looking forward to see them glowing in the future.
Qaf Podcast Awards is the first of its kind at the local and Arab levels, aiming to create inspirational audio content through enriching stories.
This is about books talks, one of the activities that the main library is taking as a responsibility towards, broadcasting and talking about the books that we own at the main library at Sultan Qaboos University. The award is more of kind of encouragement for our team to continue these efforts to broadcast about the books in the main library.
The youth taking the lead in doing such awards is an added value to the sector in the Sultanate, especially as they mentioned, it's the first award in podcast in the Arab world. So I think it's an added value to the youth sector in Oman, and it is a start to support the podcast sector in the Sultanate.
Since its inception 5 years ago, Qaf Network strives to make the Sultanate of Oman among the pioneers in the podcast industry at the regional level, especially in light of the demand for distinctive audio content that podcast makers provide to the public.